So let's talk about subjective versus objective when it comes to reviews. Every once in a while I get that one guy who gets all pissed off because I wasn't being objective about a game that they have an unhealthy obsession with, and when I reviewed it, I didn't put it on a golden pedestal like they do, claiming that reviews are supposed to be objective, which is critically flawed logic. So let's take a look at the two definitions. Objective means that you are not going to be influenced by any personal feelings or opinions, and are only considering the facts when making a decision on something. Subjective is the opposite, where it focuses on the opinion someone has on something. For example, the moon revolves around the earth. That's objective. But if you think the moon is pretty or not, that's subjective. But let's go deeper. Here are two objective reviews. Can you tell me which game is good and which one is bad? Ratchet & Clank is a video game on the PlayStation 2. It uses 3D graphics in a 3D cartoon world. There is music, sound, and voice acting. It's a platform game. You can run and jump about the levels and get weapons from either vendors or from exploration. You collect bolts for currency and have hit points. There's a story where you have to save the universe from a bad guy. Alright. Bubsy 3D is a video game on the PlayStation 1. It uses 3D graphics in a 3D cartoon world. There is music, sound, and voice acting. It's a platform game. You can run and jump about the levels and get power-ups. You collect atoms and can use them to fire at enemies and have hit points. There's a story where you have to get off the planet you're stuck on. Those are two examples of 100% objective reviews. There's no personal feelings between them. I'm not saying if the graphics, sound, controls, or stories are good or bad. I'm just giving you the facts about the games. So if you knew nothing about those two games, how would you know if they were good or bad from an objective standpoint? The thing is, you wouldn't. You wouldn't know at all. That's where subjectivity comes in. If I said that Ratchet & Clank controlled really well and naturally, while Bubsy 3D controlled like a frozen tank, at that point you know which game is going to control better, because the subjectivity is giving you an idea of what you're going to be expecting when you go to either play, watch, read, or listen to something. While I think Ratchet & Clank controls really well, someone may not. Someone may think Bubsy 3D controls okay, not good, not bad, but just okay. So take the two objective reviews I just gave you. Now let's put some numbers there. Ratchet & Clank gets 10 out of 10 and Bubsy 3D gets 1 out of 10. Now those objective reviews have a score telling you which one is good and which one is bad. Good and bad are subjective because they are opinions, meaning that those objective reviews, because they have a score, are no longer objective. Sure, there are times when you need to be objective, like if you're a judge or on a jury. But if you're reviewing a game or a movie, book, or whatever, the second a score is attached to whatever it is that's being reviewed, it's no longer objective. It becomes subjective because that number is telling you if it's good or bad, which is subjective. An objective review would not have a score because that number reflects the personal feelings of that person who reviewed it. I'll give you an example. When I bought my new graphics card, I ignored the reviews of it. I'm spending a lot of money on a gaming card and I don't want someone's opinion. I want actual facts. I looked up the NVIDIA GTX 980 Ti and the AMD Radeon R9 390X. Benchmarks showed that the NVIDIA card was better than the AMD despite the AMD having more RAM. So I chose NVIDIA, and since a lot of PC games tend to favor NVIDIA now, I chose that brand. Granted, I don't take benchmarks as the gospel truth, but I see them as more as guidelines than an actual rule. So I looked up the difference of blower designs versus fans. Blower designs operate at higher temperatures while fans don't. Although fans dump the hot air back into the case and cause ambient temperatures to go up, but since I have good airflow, that's not an issue for me. Fans are also quieter than blowers. Once I settled on fan cooling, I looked up several versions of that card. MSI's version wasn't that good and was the poorest performer, and that was the one that I was looking at getting as it had really high review scores. I looked at EVGA models, but the one that stood out amongst the rest was the Asus Strix factory overclocked GTX 980 Ti. It had great performance, low temperatures, and low noise, so that was the one I went with, and I've been very happy with it. If I had read user reviews, I may have bought a different card completely, as there's times where people let personal feelings get in the way of it. Maybe they don't like the company that made it. Maybe they got that 1 out of a million cards that had a defect and they're holding it against the manufacturer. Maybe it was too noisy or operated too warm for their liking. Maybe they like the aesthetics of a blower design or whatever reason. So what's the difference between a graphics card and a game? A graphics card is something that's meant for function, and for that you need to be objective because you're going to want the best performance out of it. A game is meant for entertainment. While yes, you want to have the most entertaining time as possible, everyone's opinion of what's entertaining is going to vary from person to person. A person's opinion of a game's art style is going to vary between people. The opinion of graphics is going to vary. The sound, the controls, how it plays, the story. Most aspects of a game are subjective. But of course, there are some aspects that are objective. These range from things like performance, frame rate, graphical and sound issues, bugs and glitches that went unchecked. Not to toot my own horn, but a lot of my regular viewers like that I'm unbiased. The reason being is because I tend to keep a distance away from games that I know I won't like. I don't like sports games at all. That's why you've never seen them shown on my channel. I don't find them fun and I think they're rather boring. When I play a game, I don't know what I'm going to get, so there's no way I can be biased towards or against a game. Every game I review gets the same as fair as I can give it shot. Because I would believe, how would you know if you're going to like something or not unless you try it? I recently heard about kombucha, which is a tea that's fermented by adding bacteria and yeast colonies, essentially letting it grow into a fungus. One of the local grocery stores had a dispenser and you could try it. I like tea every now and again, so I thought I'd give it a try. I took a sip, I spit it back out, and then downed it with a drink I had in the car because it was so disgusting. But that's just my opinion. Maybe some people like the taste of tea that's been regurgitated by a heavy drinking redneck. Sure, I see reviews of a game that pop up when doing research on one, but that doesn't influence me because I see it as their opinion. It's subjective, like with Mighty No. 9. A lot of people compare the graphics to high-resolution PS1 graphics, which had me wondering if they'd ever seen a PlayStation 1 game, because they really looked like high-res PlayStation 2 graphics, and as someone who's done 3D modeling, I can gauge the polygon count from what generation a 3D model hails from. Everyone has different scales of how a game controls. You can go through Steam reviews of games and see varying opinions. You can see Metacritic scores of games having all varying degree of numbers. If all reviews were supposed to be objective, then all reviews would sound the same and they wouldn't even have scores. If you look at the reviews for Suicide Squad on Rotten Tomatoes, at time of writing, August 8th, 2016, the average critic score is 26%, but the audience score is 74%. While Ghostbusters has a critic score of 73 with a certified fresh rating, which I don't see how it could have a certified fresh rating at 73%, but the audience score is at 58%. If reviews were supposed to be objective, then they'd all have the same score or no score at all. But if they were objective, how would you know if it was worth your time or not? I derive some sort of deranged entertainment from playing a bad game. I've laughed at 50 Shades of Grey because its sentence structure was so poor and juvenile. And I've enjoyed watching Adam Sandler movies because they're somewhat entertaining in their own bad way. Except for Jack and Jill. That shit was terrible and probably the worst movie I've ever seen. But you can see what I'm getting at here. When you're going after something for its functional purpose like a computer, car, stuff like that, you need to be objective so you're not buying a piece of crap that you'll regret later on. Sure, people will tell you things which can help you in your decision in buying them. Like my dad will not buy Craftsman tools anymore because they keep breaking on him, and he won't go to Sears anymore due to continued terrible customer service. But when it comes to entertainment media, you have to be subjective because it's no longer a matter of function. It's a matter of taste and personal preferences. But it's also a matter of not letting those preferences not get mixed in with what you feel works and doesn't. I'll tell you if I feel something works or not in terms of things like control of gameplay, while giving critique on how they could have improved something. All that subjective matters since what I think about certain mechanics of a game work and don't, and they'll surely be different from someone else's. There's nothing personal to it, it's just an opinion. However, if my personal feelings get in the way, I do my best to keep those out of the equation and will generally say something is good, but not for me, as a way to acknowledge that while the game is good, I personally don't like it and therefore am not holding my personal feelings against the game. On the other hand, there's Polygon's review of Bayonetta 2. Since it was released during a time when Gamergate was in full swing, Polygon decided to push their feminazi propaganda and held Bayonetta's design, personality, and the way she fights against the game. In this case, they were being subjective and biased against the game. While they gave it a score of 7.5 out of 10, it is the lowest score the game has received, and I believe that because they were pushing that radical feminist extremism at the time, that affected their score. When you open up a review section of a gaming magazine or gaming site and see a game that you were looking forward to is getting lower scores than you thought that it would, and that person's opinion makes it sound not good, does that not give you pause? Maybe you should rent it before you slap down $60 or wait for it to go on sale. Sure, if you've got enough disposable income, then maybe it doesn't matter to you. But for those that have to squeeze every penny, it does matter, because that's wasted money that could have been used differently. Instead of spending $60 of their entertainment budget on a bad game that was supposed to be the best game of the year, they could have bought 2 old but good games that they wanted for $30 each. So you need that subjectivity when it comes to the entertainment you consume, because you're going to have a hard time returning it to get your money back if you think it's bad. Thank God Steam lets you refund a game if it's bad, but try getting a refund for a bad game elsewhere. It's not going to be that easy. It's not